Ladies and gentlemen, I highly suggest watching the full video. Towards the middle part, I get into my opinions on the cyclical situation and the bull market structure itself in its current form. Let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, the only word I can produce at the moment is wow. That was the biggest drop, most aggressive drop we have ever seen in cryptocurrency history by a long shot. Forget the price action, forget the percentage. On the liquidation map, we see 17 billion US dollars getting wiped within the last 4 hours, 19 billion in the last 24 hours, most of which were longs. That is far exceeding anything we've ever seen before. To give you perspective, we look at the last 6 months of price action. There's the big liquidation. Nothing even comes close. Nothing even comes within 15% of what we've seen in the last 4 hours, let alone the last 24 hours. Absolutely insane. Bigger than the COVID drop by a long shot, okay? The group chat has been going off this morning. Of course, if you're not in the group chat, join, but down below, it's free to join. I've been posting in there, but we've seen on Bitcoin, 13% drop within the last, certain amount of hours, and most of that in the last 1 or 2 hours, right? And in a 1 hour period, 40-minute period, we saw 10% drop on Bitcoin. We're not going to dwell too long on these numbers here, but I just want to really give you the perspective here. I'm not sensationalizing this. In the total cryptocurrency market cap, 16% drop in less than 45 minutes. In the total three, the altcoin market, absolute obliteration. A 30% drop almost in 30 minutes, 1% per minute. Most altcoins are down very significantly. Very big altcoins, some of them dropped to 70, 80, even 90% in a very short period of time. During this massive cataclysmic drop, we actually saw exchanges go down all over the board. Okay, a lot of exchanges, including Bitunix, are linked to Binance in price index, and so Binance dropped down, and therefore many did. CoinGlass was even down. It's not even a bloody exchange. Of course, all funds are safe. There was no loss of funds or anything, but exchanges just temporarily went offline, couldn't handle the influx of price action. But funds are definitely secure on Bitunix, by the way, for those who are concerned. I've reached out to a contact there. What caused this? Well, that's the big question, isn't it? A $900 billion US wipe in the market. $900 billion on the total cryptocurrency market cap within 30 minutes. Most of that within 30 minutes. What caused this? Well, Trump's tariffs, right? Again, it's a repeat of April, just on a much more aggressive scale. 100% tariff on China led to a global market collapse. It's not just Bitcoin and cryptocurrency that has seen this. We also see on the S&P 500, again on the 5-minute chart, the S&P dropping close to 260 points. That's unprecedented, okay? 3.7% on the S&P 500 in less than 8 hours. Unbelievable price action, most of that coming at the open. So this is market-wide. This is a true black swan event. People talk about black swan events. People talk about, ETFs were a black swan event, blah, blah, blah. No, of course it wasn't. Anything that is predictable, anything that is foreseeable is not a black swan event. This came out of absolutely nowhere, and therefore it was absolutely incapable of being priced in. No one could price this in because no one thought it was going to happen. It was unpredictable by a TA. This is a true black swan event. They don't come very often. One of them was the COVID drop. One of them is right now. And being a black swan event, I will clearly state that anyone you see, and this is worth stating because, of course, if you're getting your crypto content from YouTube, as you can tell by the fact you're watching this video, anyone who says they claimed this drop will occur is lying to you. This drop was entirely unpredictable. It happened due to an announcement by Donald Trump on Truth Social, okay? This is absolutely unpredictable. It happened at the whim of an individual. Now, of course, being bearish is a different story. You could have been bearish and could have been predicting a drop, but nothing like this. This is the biggest drop in cryptocurrency history, right? So now that we've really brushed up on the scale of this, I think you probably are aware of the scale of this, we can get into where do we stand now, right? Because although we've seen this massive drop, we can't just throw out the TA, we have to still trust the charts. We're going to get into that in this video. Ladies and gentlemen, this drop is a testament to the security of the Bitunix Exchange in many ways. During the absolute peak, fear, every word you can imagine to describe what it was of the drop, we saw Bitunix keep funds secure. Of course, trading was restricted. That was the case on most exchanges, including big exchanges like Binance, Coinbase, etc. But this is an exchange that has never had a security breach before, so it's keeping up with that track record even in times of high volatility. It's also an exchange that is globally accessible, and with my referral link down below, you can get a 15% trading fee discount attached to your Bitunix account for life. So sign up with my link down below for that security track record and the global access, as well as, again, with that exclusive referral link, the exclusive fee discount. I use this exchange personally, and I'm continuing to do so, even in wake of the price action here. Links down below, let's get into the content. Is the bull market over? That is the question people are asking. Well, to answer that question, we have to give you context. What is the bull market? The bull market is part of the 4-year cycle. The 4-year cycle is a trend that has existed since 2012. The 4-year cycle says that we should be topping out around October this year. That is an opinion that the 4-year cycle has had, or it's a projection the 4-year cycle has made since 2022, or since the top of 2021, right? This has been present on this YouTube channel. We've been talking about it for literally years. 3 years of my life I've been talking about October 2025. But the thing with the 4-year cycle, even though I think it's amazing, of course it can break, but secondly, the thing with the 4-year cycle that is a little bit of a frustration to us is the 4-year cycle does not predict prices. It predicts dates. So it gives us a rough date of when the top should be, which is October. We already know that. But it doesn't tell us where the top will be in terms of price. So it gives us a situation in which, we don't know for sure whether the top we saw here on the 6th of October or the 7th of October was the actual top. Yes, it was a top in October. Yes, we have dropped from that level. But the only way to confirm that that was the actual cyclical top, right, the actual macro top, is to see a proper macro chart breakdown. So the question becomes, have we seen a macro breakdown? And the answer to that question at this point is not really. No, we haven't. What am I considering a macro breakdown? Well, I think, of course, this is where some people can differ on opinions, but I think my opinion is very defensible here. Now, before I even move forward anything more, what we have seen in the last 24 hours is not good, and it's not indicative of bullish price action to come. But again, relying on the simple framework that I just put out, in order to validate a macro top, you need to see a macro breakdown. The fact is, the macro level we've been watching is yet to break. And so all hope for a higher high is not yet gone. It certainly is not looking great, but all hope for a higher high, again, is not yet gone. Well, first of all, where did we reject from? And then we can get into what that macro level is. And then, of course, we'll discuss Ethereum and altcoins towards the end of the video because there's a lot of things to be updated there. Track the white lines on the screen here. Both of these white lines are incredibly important. They go back to 2017. One of them cuts through the highs in a slightly different way of 2021, and one of them cuts through the absolute peaks in 2021. And you can see they both have slightly different use cases, right? One of them has been influential in short term in predicting bounces and rejections, okay? And one of them has been influential on a macro scale. It's never been broken before, ever, in Bitcoin's price history. 3 separate retests in the last few months here. We saw a rejection from that level at $126.5 thousand right here on the 6th or 7th of October. That level, unfortunately, is bolstered by major macro resistance coming from the power law chart on Bitcoin. Zooming into the power law chart, you can see resistance around that $130,000 price region, which also has been the culprit for rejections on 2 separate occasions in the last 3 months. The 2 of which, by the way, were this right here and this right here. So it is heavily connected to the same line that has led to these rejections. These 2 charts support each other. The 3rd chart that we're looking at is the Bitcoin logarithmic regression channel, which I look at personally. I don't see many other YouTubers watching this at all, really. It's an angle of ascension based chart. The angle of ascension between peaks and troughs decreases by 50% each cycle. And currently we have resistance at around $128,000, seen rejections multiple times in the last year from that top line. So there is major resistance on Bitcoin around that $127,000 to $131,000 region as it currently stands. We did test that region. That region was tested within October. October is the important time frame we mentioned since 2021, and that region is the important level we've mentioned since the end of last year, right? So all of this comes together to tell us that yes, that actually was a valid macro top, right? That could be the cyclical top. If that is the cyclical top, that would have been a regular 4-year cycle, okay? Again, we'll get into the altcoin argument and the Ethereum argument in a moment here. But again, the only way to validate that is to see a proper macro breakdown. And in my view, that has not quite occurred yet. because I'm looking at the macro structure here. I'm looking at a simple analysis of 101 TA. What have we seen? Higher lows, right? Higher highs. That is a macro upwards trend. In order for a macro upwards trend to begin to break, you need to see lower lows begin to occur. Our recent lows were right on top of this support zone, stemming from $107.3 thousand and stemming from the bull market support band, which was retested on 2 separate occasions. That level has not been broken on any significant time frame yet. Therefore, a macro low has not occurred, and without a macro low, there is no sign of clear macro weakness in this trend. There is medium-term weakness, there is short-term weakness, there is bad momentum, but there is no macro weakness yet. And for that reason, I'm not willing to come out in this YouTube channel and say that we are in a macro bear market at this point. I think that would be disingenuous. I think that's simply not proven by the macro charts. What I can say is we are in a very high risk situation, and what we have done in the last 24 hours is very much not good, and it's definitely flipped the short-term and medium-term projections into the downside, and bearishness or I would say caution is very much warranted in this situation, but not absolute bearishness yet. It's very important to remain level-headed, even though we've seen a big drop. You need to stick to the facts. We got this far in the cycle by sticking to macro, and so it doesn't serve us to abandon it now. I look at the 2-week chart RSI on Bitcoin, and I understand charts can change, and they certainly will, but none of our traditional indications for a macro top have really triggered, which makes the situation even more dubious, right? To use Benjamin Cohen's word. I don't watch Benjamin Cohen, but I just know he says that a lot. We have the 2-week chart RSI, resistance constantly being tested here on the 2-week chart RSI, marking major tops in the Bitcoin price. That level has not been marked in this cycle. We are still in a triangle consolidation pattern, which again represents the fact that, okay, sure, our top maybe hasn't been placed, but we also haven't seen a macro breakdown to validate the fact that it won't come. So we are still in a bit of a middle ground, as proven by the 2-week chart RSI as well. Now we can shift into the Ethereum and total cryptocurrency market cap price action, the altcoin market. Ethereum is very much a similar case to Bitcoin, although it looks slightly worse. Ethereum, just like Bitcoin, just to avoid getting into this for too long here, very important resistance line here in white, which was flipped. We bounced off of that level. We have bull market support band support in the current price region. We are still on the green macro support, starting from 3,820-ish. Again, clambering onto that macro support, clinging onto it for now. Not looking great at all. We didn't even see a higher high on Ethereum. Definitely, struggling a lot on Ethereum specifically now, but not in a true macro breakdown yet. Very much on the edge, very much worth considering de-risking. But again, not a true macro breakdown. The altcoin market is a slightly different story. The altcoin market looks pretty horrible. I'm going to be frank with you. It's looked pretty horrible all cycle. This could come as no surprise here. We haven't broken the 2021 highs. We rejected from an ascending channel formation. Massive drop to the downside. Yeah, there is support, but altcoins just haven't been doing well this cycle at all. And after this drop, it's very hard to imagine what could reverse that situation unless we just see an absolute explosion to the upside matching the scale of the drop, which would be insane. The total cryptocurrency market cap at the moment is another reason to not quite be convinced that we are in a macro bear market yet. We have clear horizontal support on top, bull market support band, a very important indicator across all charts right now, which is being held. We aren't seeing lower lows quite yet. Yeah, again, in a scary position on the edge of a cliff, not quite in a confirmed bear market. So that really wraps up my conclusion on the macro scale. I just wanted to give you an idea of what's going on here macro-wise. A lot of people were spam messaging me, are we in a bear market? Are we in a bear market? Look, it's very much a risky market environment, much more risky than it was 2 days ago, I'll say that. And if we did see a top here on October 7th, yeah, that would have been a valid macro top. That would have been a valid cyclical top, the thing I've been discussing for years. But I've also been preaching for years, for the entirety of my YouTube channel and for the entirety of my life as an analyst, that we need to trust big structures. Big structures matter more than short-term momentum. And the big structures have not collapsed yet. Now, that doesn't mean that you should be selling the house to buy Bitcoin and altcoins and Ethereum. I don't think you should be touching altcoins at all, personally. I haven't suggested at all. I don't recommend anything, but I haven't even thought about touching altcoins myself this cycle in any major way. I don't think the altcoin market has ever looked good this cycle, and I think my YouTube channel has reflected that massively. Ethereum, on the other hand, is something that I have talked about quite a lot. Even at this point, with the risk we're seeing, I wouldn't actually be touching Ethereum too heavily here. I am in a very much patient, observant, more of a sidelining kind of position, waiting for security to return to the market before I think about exposing myself to any major risk at this point. But with that said, I'm not out here shorting the market 100x because we simply are not confirmed to be in a bear market yet. So I remain, I suppose optimism is a bad word. I remain aware to the fact that we are still in, by definition, a macro bull market because we are still in, by definition, a macro upwards trend. Caution is rising, of course, but I'm not going to be the one who's sitting out here and saying we are in a confirmed bear market when we simply are not. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed. Hopefully you didn't take too many hits on this drop. I imagine actually most people didn't because exchanges dropped offline for quite a period of time. And by the time they came back online, the market was back up to pretty much where it started dropping from on a short-term level. So that actually saved a lot of people, I'd imagine. Just a word I will say is it's very, very risky to be selling during a drop like that. Usually the liquidation wick is just a liquidation wick and it gets eaten right back up, at least on a short-term level. So keep that in mind for next time. Guys, thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Bitunix Exchange, global, non-KYC, not a single security breach in its entire price history. Again, globally accessible. It says it right there on the screen. Very rare these days to find an exchange like that. If you're interested, use my referral link down below to sign up with a 15% trading fee discount exclusively with that link granted to you by myself. So if you want to sign up to that exchange, it's the exchange I personally use. The link's down below. I appreciate it. Help out the channel and help out yourself by getting on that one. Cheers, guys. See you tomorrow.